All right, thank you, Sheriff Norris. I appreciate that. That is definitely a concern that a lot of people in this room have in regards to Kootenai County. And but let's turn it over to the state here and our wonderful 7 representatives. And we're going to do things a little differently today. I know in the past a lot of people are used to writing questions, but the individuals here have agreed to take direct questions from the audience. And so with that, remember that questions are questions. They're not stories, they're not anecdotes, they're not personal attacks. If you can't get your question out in 20 seconds, there's a nice young man right up there named Jason. He will cut your microphone. So what we're going to do, you can direct the questions to individuals up here on the stage, or you can just kind of put it out to all of them. And I have some wonderful volunteers. I have Charity over here. Erin just left the room. Oh no, there she is. And then I will manage the mic as well. And so feel free to, we have 3 rows of where you can line up for questions. So you have right here, which will be me. Charity's on the end, Erin's in the middle. And so feel free to hop up and ask your questions. And again, I really want to reiterate the respectfulness. You know, it doesn't mean you can't ask tough questions, but please keep it respectful. None of these individuals campaigned on 100% agreement. I don't remember any of them saying that I will, vote 100% how you personally want me to. So, with that, I'll let Erin take the first question.
Chris Nordstrom, Post Falls. I'd like to know what happened I think it was House Bill 63, but I'm not positive, the one that was going to prevent forced vaccinations of people employed by the state or associated with any kind of a state agency. What happened to that?
Is this on?
Power button till the light turns green.
Thank you. I just learned something. Okay. That bill was held in committee by the chair of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. We have the vice chair here, but he did not make that, Peter Riggs, but he did not make that decision. If it's any consolation, we have a state law that says that you may not force anyone, even children, against the will of the parents to get a vaccination.
And one of the reasons that I was a strong advocate when we first got down there for recess instead of adjourn sine die was so that we would be prepared to come back in the event that something does happen on a federal level. There are so many things happening currently on a federal level that should make us all wake up in the middle of the night and wonder where we go from here. So anyway, that's one of the reasons the House was adamant about recess. And so we do have the ability to go back into session. Sometimes there's 105 of us plus 1 down there. Sometimes it takes a push to get us to move. And something like forcing vaccinations would be the push we would need to act rather quickly. So anyway, it actually is in House Ways and Means. It was introduced, I think it was Tammy Nichols. Didn't get out of the House. And Ways and Means, it's just introduced as a personal courtesy to the person that brought the bill forward. But it was pretty well understood that it wasn't really going to go anywhere. We did receive a lot of email on that bill, but the fact is, it wasn't time. However, time could be coming.
The green light's on. Mary and I both learned something today.
My name is Mary Swoboda. My question, a number of them, is for everyone. Idaho is still under martial law after nearly a year and a half. What is the excuse for the legislature not to remove this? And the state has also received over $8 billion in federal funds so far. What strings are attached, and will Idaho start to reject any further COVID federal funds? Thanks.
It's fascinating to me the battles that we do in the legislature with respect to this money. The example that I want to use is the one that Priscilla Giddings was I think, really front and center in trying to address, and that was the $6 million that was going to the indoctrination of pre-kindergarten kids. That money was pretty popular among a lot of the facilities that were addressing, dealing with kids. So we rejected it, I don't know, once or twice, and the conversation kept coming up, it needed to come back, and we needed to fund this, and it was ARPA money, which was the American, what is it? Recovery, something or other. Anyway, but the fascinating thing is that we get home, legislation, we're at recess, and I read that, oh, there's a workaround. They've already spent $3.5 million of it, and so don't worry about it, they're gonna figure out another way to go. They didn't even need us to spend that money, and here we have spent all this time, all this energy, trying to stop this little bit compared to the $369 million that went to the Medicaid expansion for last year's budget. The money is astounding how much is coming in. The strings we don't have any idea about because they keep changing. The ARPA rules and regulations are changing on a, bi-weekly basis. So the strategy, as much as the conservatives, and there are several of us, especially here from the north, are working to try and slow the money down from the federal government. And we talk about the $8 billion that came in last year from March to December. $8 billion into the economy. It's no wonder the taxes and the receipts from the state have increased. Everybody's businesses have increased. But that kind of money in a state like this, it means a lot. Imagine if we were to stop taking the federal money, what that would do to the economy. Well, we would like to stop it. We would like to figure out a way to keep the strings from really hampering, allowing the agencies the power that they have. But when the money's flowing, the legislature can pretend it has all this authority, but when they have workarounds, what are they talking about? When I go to the $363 million that we spent early on, appropriated early on, it was money that was supposedly already owed. It was going on last year's or this year's current budget, not next year's. That is so much money compared to what they told us it was going to, this Medicaid expansion. And we're berated by the press because we're trying to slow it down and say, wait a minute, what are the providers doing? And the Medicaid expansion was supposed to decrease the cap fund. And it didn't. So the frustrations continue, but understand there is a contingent of us, especially here from the north, that are continuing this battle, both rhetorically, messaging, and voting. And it is an ongoing process. I would love to see the Senate become a little more conservative. I would love to see the Senate become a little more... I don't mean to attack them, I'm just saying that overall, to not recognize that the legislatures, that if we don't begin to apply some radical ideas to the way the legislature's power is being degraded, if we don't begin to be creative and more radical, the radicalization is going to be imposed upon us. And it's just that right now the legislature needs to continue to empower itself, and that means maybe a bigger budget, that means maybe saying no to some of these other agency budgets, and begin to flex what we can, but it's not something that can be done radically, it's not something that can be done instantaneously because of the disruption. But this is the direction I would like to see us go, and I'm sure many of us here, not to speak for the rest on the panel here, but that's the direction we're going to go. This is not an easy battle. $8 billion plus this year's, and I don't see the federal government stopping. They have to continue to give this money out. How do we say no? Anyway, thanks.
Yay!
I'll just make one quick comment, especially as it relates to the Medicaid stuff and as Vito's comment about it not reducing the CAT fund and the indigent fund from the state, and that has been an ongoing problem. And I think that's something that you see if you spend a good deal of time in looking at all of the codes and the agencies and everything that we have, and that's why some of it takes a little bit of extra work that hasn't been done yet. And one of the things that to help this Medicaid issue, these inflated numbers that are wildly higher than anyone in the state was told they were going to be. I sponsored House Bill 316 to eliminate the CAT fund and the indigent fund, and basically it's a tough bill that a lot of folks were worried about, especially from an institutional standpoint, hospitals and public health districts and whatnot, because the way the bill works is it basically cuts off funding for these programs that were supposed to be handled by Medicaid and weren't dealt with at the same time as Medicaid implementation. And so now we kind of got together and said, okay, even though it looks like we're running towards a kind of a seismic shift in the way the states handle healthcare, the Medicaid promise and the Medicaid funding was that to make the indigent fund and the CAT fund become obsolete. And so it's time to finally pull the trigger and get those things done. And so we passed that bill and it was signed into law. So the indigent fund and the CAT fund are going away now. It's a little help to the massively inflated numbers from Medicaid, but a lot of these things take that step-by-step need, and if you don't have a legislator or a group of legislators that are willing to take up some of those challenging topics at any given time, then they have a tendency to just stay in place while other things are added on. So part of it is seeing where we can continue to make these adjustments based on the things that we're seeing. So that was, I think, one small win to help us get back towards some financial sanity, but it certainly doesn't help the Medicaid situation.
I should just leave it on, yeah. I wanted to address the question that we are still in, or the comment that we're still in martial law. That is not true. The emergency declaration for federal, that allows federal funding, may be still in place. But if you look at these sheets, if you look at the sheet that was handed out of the 8 promises that we made for this summer, when we had the big the town hall this summer, in our Senate resolution, we had 8 promises of what we were going to do when we came back into session. And all of them are listed out here with the answers and the actions that we took. We fulfilled each one of those promises with legislation, and that has been signed into law. So if you look at number 7, it says rescinding the existing emergency declarations. And Senate Bill 1217 limits the amount of time that a governor can keep the state in a state of emergency without the oversight of the legislature. It says the powers granted by the legislature to the governor, and I won't go into all that, will be revoked on the 90th day of the proclaimed state of emergency unless the legislature is in regular session or unless the governor issues a proclamation convening an extraordinary session. And you know also that we have the bill that, the resolution that passed that will put the legislature's ability to call ourselves back. It will be on the November 2022 ballot for all of you to vote on. Those are incredibly important powers that we need to have so that we can respond to these kinds of issues. So thank you, and but please look at this, because this list of those 8 items that we promised to do have been fulfilled, even if you don't love the Senate.